Picture this. You're a banana slug trying to improve yourself, but instead of actually doing anything, you keep reading books about how other banana slugs got successful. That's basically what we're all doing with self-help, and it's even more absurd than it sounds. Let me explain. You know that feeling when you're reading a self-help book and you're like, this is it. This is going to change everything. Yeah, I've been there multiple times, actually like way too many times, and that's kind of the problem. See, the self-help industry is doing something really interesting to our brains. And once I tell you what it is, you're never going to look at these books the same way again. It's like when someone tells you that the FedEx logo has an arrow in it. You just can't unsee it. But before we get into that, let me tell you about what happened to me last week. I was cleaning out my apartment, right? And I found this stack of self-help books from the last few years. We're talking Atomic Habits, The 5 a.m. Club, Think and Grow Rich, all the classics. And as I'm looking at them, I realized something kind of crazy. Every single one of these books promised to change my life. And for a minute there, while I was reading each one, I really believed they would. But here's the thing, they all say basically the same thing, just in different ways, with different metaphors, different frameworks, different systems. It's like if I told you the secret to getting in shape was moving more and eating less, but I stretched it into 300 pages and called it the quantum physics of fat loss or something equally ridiculous. But here's where it gets really interesting. The self-help industry isn't just selling us books, they're selling us hope. And not just any kind of hope. They're selling us hope in a very specific way that's literally designed to keep us coming back for more. Think about it like this. When was the last time you read one self-help book and thought, great, I'm fixed now? Never, right? Because that's not how it works. Instead, you read one book, get super pumped for like a week, maybe try some of the advice, and then you're right back where you started. But instead of thinking, maybe this doesn't work, what do? We blame ourselves. We think, I just need to try harder, or maybe I need to read another book. And boom, that's how they get you. Let me break down something that's going to blow your mind. The self-help industry is worth over $11 billion. That's billion with a B. And you know what's crazy? It's growing every year. But if self-help actually worked, wouldn't it be shrinking? Wouldn't people be getting helped and moving on with their lives? Here's a fun fact that's going to ruin your whole day. Most of the advice in modern self-help books isn't even new. It's just ancient philosophy repackaged with better marketing. That mindfulness app you're using, that's just Buddhism minus the religion, or Christianity without the Bible. That visualization technique, the ancient Greeks were doing that thousands of years ago. But wait, it gets better. Remember how I mentioned these books all say the same thing? Let me prove it to you. Here's a game we can play. I'm going to give you some classic self-help advice, and you try to guess which book it's from. Believe in yourself and take action. Set clear goals and visualize success. Start small and build habits. Your thoughts create your reality. The truth? These could be from literally any self-help book ever written. It's like they're all playing Mad Libs with the same template. Now I know what you're thinking. But some of this advice is actually good. And you're right. That's what makes this whole thing so tricky. The advice isn't necessarily bad. It's just obvious. It's common sense dressed up in a $25 hardcover with a fancy font. Let me tell you about this experiment I did. I took 3 different self-help books and mapped out their main points. Want to know what I found? They all followed the exact same pattern. Tell you you're not living up to your potential. Promise a simple solution. Give some basic advice wrapped in fancy language. Tell you if it's not working, you're not trying hard enough. It's like a recipe for making you feel simultaneously hopeful and inadequate. And that's exactly what keeps you coming back for more. But here's the part that's really going to mess with your head. The self-help industry actually benefits from you not succeeding. Think about it. If you read a book and it completely solved all your problems, would you buy another one? Of course not. They need you to feel just good enough to believe in the process, but not so good that you stop buying books. It's literally the same psychology that casinos use to keep you gambling. Remember that banana slug I mentioned at the start? Here's why that metaphor works so perfectly. Imagine if instead of actually moving forward, a banana slug just sat there reading books about how other banana slugs moved forward. That's what we're doing when we consume self-help content without actually taking action. But it gets even worse. Let me tell you about something called spiritual bypassing. It's this thing where people use self-help and personal development as a way to avoid actually dealing with their problems. It's like putting a motivational quote, Band-Aid on a broken arm. You know those people who respond to every problem with just think positive, or everything happens for a reason. Yeah, that's spiritual bypassing. And guess what? A lot of self-help books actually encourage this kind of thinking. Here's another fun fact that's going to ruin your day. Studies have shown that people who read a lot of self-help books often have higher levels of anxiety and depression. Why? Because they're constantly being told they need to improve, that they're not good enough yet, that if they just try this one more thing, then they'll finally be happy. But let me tell you what actually works. And this is probably going to make a lot of self-help authors mad. You ready for this? Action. Just straight up action. Not reading about action, not thinking about action, not visualizing action, just actually doing stuff. Want to be more productive? Start working. Want to get in shape? Start moving. Want to be more confident? Start putting yourself in situations that build confidence. But that doesn't sell books, does it? You can't make an entire industry out of just do the thing. Now, I'm not saying all self-help is bad. There are some genuinely good books out there that can give you new perspectives and useful tools. The problem is when we treat self-help like it's magic, like reading a book is the same as making actual changes in our lives. Let me give you one more metaphor that's going to change how you see this whole industry. You know how some people spend hours watching cooking shows but never actually cook? That's what we're doing with self-help. We're consuming content about improving our lives instead of actually improving our lives. And here's the kicker. The real reason self-help doesn't help most people isn't because the advice is bad. It's because we're using it as a substitute for action. We're mistaking reading for doing. We're confusing knowledge for change. Think about it like this. If you wanted to learn how to swim, would you rather A, read 10 books about swimming techniques, B, get in the pool and actually try swimming? Seems obvious, right? But with personal development, we somehow convince ourselves that reading another book is the same as taking action. Here's what nobody in the self-help industry wants you to know. You already know what you need to do. You don't need another book to tell you to eat healthy, exercise, work hard, be kind, and face your fears. You know all that stuff already. What you need isn't more information, it's more action, more doing, more trying and failing and learning and trying again. But that's scary, isn't it? It's much more comfortable to sit and read about success than to actually risk failure. It's easier to buy another book than to face our fears. And that's exactly what the self-help industry is banking on. So here's what I want you to do after watching this video. Take all those self-help books on your shelf and look at them differently. See them for what they really are. Not magic pills that will fix your life, but just books with some basic advice wrapped in fancy packaging. And then here's the real challenge. Pick one thing you've been reading about and actually do it. Don't read about it, don't plan it, don't visualize it, just do it. Because at the end of the day, that banana slug isn't going to move forward by reading about movement. It's going to move forward by actually moving. And yeah, I probably just ruined self-help for you, but maybe that's exactly what you needed. Because once you see through the marketing, the fancy language, and the false promises, you can stop looking for answers in books and start finding them in action. So the next time you're tempted to buy another self-help book, remember this. The best self-help is often no help at all. Just you taking action, learning from your mistakes, and moving forward. And hey, if this video helped you see through the self-help industry's tricks, share it with someone who has a shelf full of unread self-help books. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is ruin something that's not actually helping. That's it for today. Now go do something instead of just reading about doing something. Catch you in the